Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for attending our webinar today. I'm Scott at Chief Architect, and I'm here to share some of my productivity tips with you. Today's session will be recorded, and we'll send that out at least within the next day or two with some survey questions, and we'd value your feedback. You may notice my occasional assistant today. This is Maya. She's my 3-pound Maltese. And we also have some chief architect staff available to keep an eye on me and also to answer your questions. In today's presentation, we covered productivity tips a couple of weeks ago in some sense, and today we're going to cover saved plan views. Now let me switch over and share my screen, and let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. So a couple of weeks ago, we actually covered the first three parts of productivity tips for command and control, 2D and 3D editing, and hidden gems. And I included additional elements in that video. And if you'd like to get a copy of that video, just send a chat message in and we'll send you a link to that. Today's presentation, we're going to talk about saved plan views. Primarily, I will also be talking about default sets. I'm going to go through a summary real quick, and then we're going to go through and demonstrate each one of these things. So what are saved plan views and how can you use them to your advantage when you're creating your construction drawings? So saved plan views, one, defines your layer set. And on the image that I have here on the screen, your saved plan views would control your layer set. In this case, maybe a kitchen and bath view, a floor plan view, an electrical view. And as you change your, say, plan view, it will change those layer sets for you. And it has the things on that you commonly would use for those views. It's a great way to change it. Save plan views allows you to open up multiple 2D views simultaneously. So if you're working on two different views in the same plan, it's a convenient way to do it. It allows you to control reference display. It can be floor plan and zoom specific, and it controls your defaults. So with respect to opening up multiple views simultaneously, in 3D, you know that you can open up multiple cameras simultaneously. In 2D, you can do the exact same thing. In this case, I have the floor plan and the electrical plan open simultaneously. The other thing that you can control with your saved plan view is a thing called reference display. And I have two examples here on my screen. In one example, I'm simply overlaying the floor below and superimposing it on the floor above. On the example on the right-hand side of my screen, I'm superimposing the as-built drawing onto the final remodel plan, may be required in your permitting process. Defaults and default settings are also controlled through your saved plan view. When you switch, in the case that I have up mainly on my screen is the kitchen and bath view. When you do your dimensioning in the kitchen and bath view, you want to make sure those dimensions are on the correct layer. When you add a text or an annotation call out, you want to make sure those are on the correct layer. And we're going to spend some time looking at exactly how those things work. What I want to do is let's back up and let's look at each one of these things inside the program. I'm going to switch over and open up the program. I have a sample plan that's currently open. And let's kind of begin by what does it mean to have multiple views open simultaneously? And most of you may be familiar. Off to the right-hand side of my screen, I have my project browser up. I usually always have this open so it's an easy way to navigate through my plan. And I have three current camera views that I have saved over here. I'm just going to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And I'll tile my screen so you can kind of see what we have open. I have multiple camera views open simultaneously, and this may be an easy way to kind of come in here and do your editing. You can look around. These are saved views. Let's just pick on this main upper right view. In these camera views, there are several settings you can change. One of them is your layer set. And if I switch my panel off to the right here to the active layer display set options, one of the first things that you can do is change your layer set. And I'm just going to switch this to the 3D framing view. We have a specific camera for creating 3D framing, but all that really is a layer set, and it allows you to switch those views quickly. So having multiple 3D views open simultaneously can be advantageous depending on what you're doing. And if we come down to our plan views, let me just grab the electrical, the floor plan, and the HVAC view that I have open. And let's go ahead and open those views again simultaneously. I'll tile my screen so you can see all of these. In this case, this may be a beneficial thing. You might be working on a larger plan. You want to be looking at the main floor, and then simultaneously you might be wanting to look at the foundation level. So having multiple views open in the same plan is one of the advantages to having a saved view. Let's take a look at the reference display, and I'm kind of giving you a summary of each of the features, and then I'm going to dig in and show you specifically how to build a saved plan view and how to take advantage of it. Let's maximize this particular view. And reference display is saved, can be saved with your view. And if I toggle that on, you can see that, let me zoom in a little bit. You can see that I have superimposed the as-built drawing. That's what the orange outline shows. And if I toggle that on, there's a shortcut that I use for reference display, F9 on my keyboard. And it allows you to reach out, and in this case, I'm using the as-built plan, and I'm just superimposing that over the completed remodel. There's another way you can use reference display. If I switch back over into the floor plan, I can actually superimpose the floor above and floor below. Let me move down to the foundation level here. And again, let's toggle on the reference display. In this case, all I'm doing in this reference display is showing the floor above. And if I wanted to use this to help me stack and position walls, this reference display can be a useful tool. And if you're curious of how I'm tiling my windows, there's a shortcut that you can use called Shift F6 on your keyboard. You can see it under my menu here, tile vertically. And typically when you want to see what the shortcut is, it's usually right next to your tool. Now, let's maximize our electrical view and let's maximize the HVAC. One of the advantages here in setting up the defaults, because defaults can be tied to your saved plan view. And on the left-hand side, I have this view called the HVAC view. You can see it in my drop-down HVAC. You can also see that it's open over in my project browser, the HVAC view. And one of the advantages in this case is if I want to add an annotation, let's just come in here and let's put an annotation next to this fresh air return. That text shows up. You don't see it in my electrical plan, which would be right in here. And most importantly, when I tap on that and I move over to the active layer display set, this shows which layer that text came in on. So it's coming in on a layer for the HVAC specifically. And you don't see it in the other views because that's one of the nice things is you want to isolate those layers so it doesn't show up. Let's go through and practice and build one, and then I'm going to open the floor up to questions. In this sample plan that I have open, you can access your saved plan views from the drop-down up here in the toolbar. You're going to notice the Save Plan View options. You can come down here and you can choose. You can also choose these Save Plan Views over in your project browser. You'll find a category called Plan Views. You can come down here, double click to open up any of these views, and it will instantly open up a new panel or a new tab. And then to switch between these views, you can easily come over here and switch between these views. When you start a new plan in Chief Architect, our template plan includes about a dozen different Save Plan views that are already pre-configured for you. In my sample plan that I have open, I've created a few additional ones that I will typically use for my projects. Let me go ahead and open up the Foundation Save Plan view. Now you're going to notice this opened it up into a new tab. It's already on floor 0, and again, as we go through the different views that I have open, the electrical view, the ceiling view, these are using different layer sets and have different looks and different default settings behind each one of them. Let's go ahead and take a look at the settings for this foundation view by coming over. Let's right click and click Edit View. Let's begin on the General panel. Underneath the General portion of this dialog, the floor is being saved specifically on the foundation floor. Notice that you can choose the different floors you have available in your plan, or you can use any floor. Typically, unless it's very floor specific, in this case the foundation, I will use any floor because that way, if you have a multi-story plan, I don't have to have a view for every single story. I find it most efficient to use any floor, with the exception in this case where the foundation is typically going to be specific on a floor. Right below that is the Remember Zoom and Rotation. When you check that option, your Save Plan view can be zoomed in on a specific area within your plan. Could be you have a large plan, you want to zoom in on the master bath, and that way you could save a view. Every time you open it, it would be zoomed in. There's a few other options down here. You may notice that I have the watermark currently being shown. You'll see that watermark up here. That's saved with the view. And then there's some settings for how you want to display your walls. Pony walls are two-part walls, and you can control the display if you want the lower wall displayed. Notice in this view, the floor plan for the foundation is only using the stem wall. When I switch over and I show you the floor plan view, my view will only show the upper wall type. Some save settings down here to prompt you to save. Let's move over to the Selected Defaults panel. On this panel, you're going to see all of the active defaults, dimensions, text, markers, arrows, etc. right down in here. This collection of settings can be a default set and change all the defaults listed below. And you could very easily change that default set with this setting, and you can learn more about that video if you watch the defaults and default set video. Toward the bottom of this dialog, underneath the layer panel, here's where the layer set is being controlled. You have access to all the different layer sets you may have created in your plan. Again, the program will ship several for you. One additional default down here in the bottom is the current CAD layer. Anytime you're drawing CAD, maybe a line, maybe a rectangle, that will be assigned to a specific CAD layer. Here's where it's being controlled and where you can save it. Reference display allows you to choose if you want to superimpose a floor below or a floor above. And if you want to save it with this, you can have many reference displays. Could be you want to display a floor above and a floor below on your current one. I'll show you an example how that works. You can also superimpose from an external file. One of the things that I like to do is superimpose an as-built floor plan over a model floor plan, and you can then save that in your reference display settings. So let's go ahead and close this dialog. Let's move over to the floor plan view and just take a look. If I go down to the foundation level, and notice that the wall type down here looks quite a bit different than it did on the foundation level. Let's take a look at the Save Plan View settings for this particular view. Let's come over, right click on this view, Edit, and for this particular view you'll notice that the wall display, unlike the foundation that was just using the lower, this is only using the upper wall type in this case. For the floor plan information, I don't want the level of detail of that foundation. So there may be times in this case where my foundation happens to be a daylight foundation and floor plan. I can very easily obtain the two different views and control that through the Save Plan view. So by coming over to the foundation, you'll notice this view is much more technical than the floor plan view without any dimensions that I have on it. Let me also open up the detailed floor plan. Let's just double click and open up this view. And this particular view has the floor plan dimensions using the same type of wall display, and then the layer set also being controlled with this. Now, one of the powerful things you're going to find with your SAB plan views, when you start doing your dimensioning or annotating with text, adding callouts, you can control all of your defaults so they're going to come in on a particular layer and also behave in a certain way. Let's go in and edit the view for this floor plan, and let's take a look at the selected defaults. In this case, my current defaults are using 1/4 inch scale dimensions, as is my text, some of my callouts, all using those very specific tools. So when I engage those tools for dimensioning or text, it's going to behave in a 1/4 inch scale. It's going to come in on a particular layer, and it makes it a very easy process and helps me really to create a clean set of construction drawings so that I'm not changing layers, changing font size, and changing colors. Let's take a look at how reference display works with a SAB plan view. I have a view specifically for my deck. When this deck view opens, notice that I'm on floor 1 in this case. Deck framing is actually completed on the floor below in Chief Architect. The deck framing that you see with beams and the joists underneath of this deck are actually on the floor below, and I'm using reference display to superimpose it. If I turn that reference display on and off, you can see what that looks like when I toggle it on and off. Also works out that F9 on my keyboard will toggle that on and off. That reference display control is being saved with my SAB plan view. If I edit this particular view, let's move over to the reference display section. On this panel, first of all, the red arrow indicates the current view that you're on. Notice that the floor is using the deck layer set, and above that is my reference display. It's using the same plan. I mentioned that you can use an as-built plan, a separate plan, or something you want to superimpose. This reference display is not limited to just this plan. Which floor you want to display, and what layer set you want to display. And what I've done here is I've created a specific layer set for the deck called Reference Deck. If you click Define, you're going to see that I've got maybe 10 different items that I wanted to display. I've also set these colors to be, in most cases, pretty muted, with the exception of my deck walls that I wanted to be black. So this reference display, I just created a copy of an existing layer set, and I made it so that I can superimpose that particular view when I toggle the reference display on. You can toggle it on, toggle it off by using the hotkey F9 on your keyboard, and again, that setting for reference display is saved within your SAB plan view. By checking your reference display, and if on the general panel you toggle it on, toggle it off, maybe you toggled it off, it will prompt you to save it. And the nice thing about that is every time I open up this particular view, the framing that I wanted to superimpose for my deck view, maybe I'm sending this out to my layout construction sheet, then it's set up the way I want it. Let me open up one more plan and I'll show you how to use reference display in an as-built condition. Now in this sample master wing remodel project, when I use the reference display, F9 is a shortcut on my keyboard to superimpose the as-built plan. This is reaching out to a separate file to superimpose this particular as-built footprint over the top. Let's go over to the SAB plan view and take a look at how this setting works. On the reference display, again, the red arrow represents the current view and the current plan using the Master Wing Bachelor Remodel project. The plan above it is actually not the same plan. If you drop this down, you'll notice that it can be Choose Existing Plan. A lot of times when I do an as-built and a remodel, I save them in the exact same folder, and then it makes it easy to choose it, and then you can match the current floor. You can choose the layer set that you want to use. In this case, sometimes I'll build a specific footprint layer set that only has those certain layers on and off, and if you just click the Define button here, you'll notice in my display set, here's what's being displayed specifically, and I've turned those layers orange. And then you could also control your line style for how that reference display works. So these settings can be saved along with that plan view, allowing you to quickly turn these things on and off depending on the plan view that you have. Let's take a look at the process of creating your own custom saved plan view. When you begin a new project, I mentioned that the program will have about a dozen different saved plan views that will show up in your project browser. The first one is typically the working area. I treat that as kind of a temporary workspace where I'm turning on different layers, maybe different layer sets, changing some of my defaults, and it's more of a temporary workspace. You may notice one of my saved plan views is a ceiling view, and maybe that's not one that ships with your template file. Let me just open this up. Notice that my saved plan view is specific to ceiling. So if you do a reflective ceiling plan or details for your particular view, here is my ceiling plan, and the question is, how would you go about creating your own saved plan view? The easiest way to do that is to typically maybe find an existing view, framing, foundation, roof, and just come over here and click the duplicate option down towards the bottom of this menu by right-clicking and clicking duplicate. At this point, the program is going to ask you to create a name for this. And in this case, I'm just going to call it Ceiling No Text. You'll notice that it immediately opens up a new panel. Here it is, Ceiling No Text. At this point, I can come in here and start doing some modifications. Let's right-click and make a small edit in here. And for this particular view, down on the selected defaults, for the layer set, I want to change that to something a little bit different. Let's go ahead and click the drop down here. And I've already created a layer set called Ceiling No Text where the dimensions and the text have already been turned off. And now you'll notice that the text, the annotations have been turned off. In the original ceiling view, those annotations and text still exist. This is a quick way that I can easily double-click and open up those specific views. I can change the layer sets, I can change the tools, I can change the reference display, and if it's something that I always do, let's say you always do a reflective ceiling plan, you could build that Save Plan view, save it in your own custom template file. Every time you do a new plan, you'll have those settings associated with your ceiling plan and be able to be very productive on your very next project. Let's look at one more small setting in here. Let's zoom in on this particular area. I'm on the ceiling plan. I can actually open up this plan view and let's go in and make sure that one, I'm saving the specific floor, in this case the first floor, and it's specific to the zoom factor that I have zoomed in. Notice how we're zoomed right into this office area. So this is saved with the zoom factor and the floor factor. And now when I close that view, let's reopen it by double clicking on it. Notice that it's zoomed right back into where we left that zoom factor. It's an effective tool if you're working maybe on a large plan and you want to be zoomed in right to a specific area inside of that plan, and maybe also floor specific. So we have a number of events coming up. Today's presentation, productivity tips, we've been doing these on Thursdays at noon. And the next presentation that we have coming up next Thursday are roof tips and tricks. We kind of have some fun projects coming up. I'm going to post some homework assignments in there if you want a challenging roof project and you want to download those. We'll post those in the handout section next week. That'll be Thursday at noon. You can sign up for that. The following Thursday will be ceilings, vaults, barrels, trays, and other ceiling styles to learn about kind of the basics. The Chief Boot Camp, that's a 2-hour class. That will begin May 11th, and then we have terrain and site plans, and we'll have a few more coming up. So make sure you take advantage of those projects and those presentations that we have. If you are interested in learning more about how to take advantage of learning while you may be self-isolating, this is a great time. We have those free and paid webinars. We have a paid webinar that are full-day classes for intro, intermediate. Those will start in May. You can find those on the website. We have on-demand classes, and you can watch those at your leisure. One-on-one training. We do screen sharing. The videos we've been talking about, how-to articles, and Chief Talk I was out on Chief Talk last night. It's amazing how many people are out there helping other people. And these are just chief architect customers like you all. You see something get posted up there, how do you do this? And there's an answer immediately. And it's a great resource if you're not familiar with Chief Talk. Be sure to take advantage of that. If you're not currently a customer, you can download a free trial of the program, download it, take a look at it, and see how it works. You can either rent the program for $199. When you purchase it, it's 20% off. Well, I wanted to thank everybody for attending today's session. We'll be back here next Thursday at noon Pacific time, focusing on roofs. And in the meantime, make sure you take advantage of our learning resources. Have a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you then.